Welcome to the Healing Broken Families podcast. I'm Barbara Pointe, and I host conversations around divorce, parental alienation, and high conflict personalities. But these conversations unfold with a healing lens, and they are trauma informed. That's so exciting because it means I can talk to whoever I want. If it benefits me, because I'm me and you're you, and we're all connected. I'm so excited to be sitting down today with one of my favorite coaches. Little sidebar, I've been following her practice for well over a year. I've done 2 coaching sessions with Margaret, and I know her work is transformative. Margaret is an intuitive self-sabotage coach who offers online coaching sessions worldwide. She makes complex issues easy to understand while holding a non-judgmental space for her clients so that they can shift their belief systems with ease and grace. Interesting note about Margaret is that her experience as a project manager and business transformation consultant for multi-billion-dollar corporations enables her to guide her clients also in organizing swift relocations to Mexico. And we might touch on that at the very end. She's coming live today for us from beautiful Mexico, my favorite place in the world. And listen, her mission is to support people who yearn to break free from self-destructive patterns. And they want to live their lives exactly how they want. Isn't that exciting? So, welcome, hola, Margaret.
Hola.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Buenas tardes. Muy bien, muy bien.
Glad to have you here. Thanks for taking the time.
So good to see you. I'm so excited to be here and talk to you and share all these exciting bits with your audience.
Me too. We have some great content planned, some great questions that I'm going to ask you. And we're going to begin with self-defeating patterns because we all have these. So I'd invite you to imagine that someone comes to you and they have some self-defeating patterns, and maybe that's showing up as self-sabotage. That'd be a nice place to start. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Self-defeating patterns are self-sabotage, and self-sabotage is your subconscious effort to stay exactly the same. The question is, the same as what? What is it that we're repeating as we all go through these self-sabotage loops, and why are we doing this? So this is the whole key golden nugget of the whole self-sabotage coaching. And the answer to that is we get imprinted very early on in our childhood with various patterns. Imagine that at age 5, you have already acquired about 50% of your beliefs about the world, about how to form judgment, what's safe and what's unsafe. So these patterns are very, very, very powerful as they are embedded in your subconscious mind.
It made me think of a moment in my training with inherited family trauma where we ask clients to remember, just ask anyone to remember their first memory. Like a lot of times we don't even have a lot of memories before the age of 4 or 5.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and what I hear you
That's true.
saying, and that's where the subconscious programming begins, is what I hear you saying.
Yes, it begins as soon as you're born, because we're born with basically with two fears, with fear of being dropped and with a fear of loud noises. And apparently, and all the other fears, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough, of rejection, all that, everything else, and that's 99.9% of what you believe, is acquired. It's acquired through your experience, and mostly they're passed by your family of origin, by the environment you were growing up until you were 5, and of course later as well. So what the way the children perceive the world is very different than us, and it's more intuitive, and they absorb the emotional cloud of their environment. So if you were in an environment, if you were raised in an environment that is mostly depressed, you would absorb that general emotional cloud into your blueprint as a safety point. And then as you absorb it, as that becomes your blueprint, you go through life multiplying that, because that is, even if it makes you unhappy, you will be multiplying that which is at your core base belief level.
That's fascinating because sometimes as humans, we try to make positive changes. We want to make positive changes um, and overcome defeating self patterns, but it doesn't happen for us. So, what I hear you saying is that because of our early subconscious programming?
Because mostly we're trying to approach it from the conscious mind level, applying willpower, for instance. And if over 90% of what you do, what you feel, and what you think is subconscious, well, let's think about that. That is so powerful. And willpower is that, maybe that 5% that's left, or 7%. So you're going against this 800-pound gorilla to try to change something. And that 800-pound gorilla, that's the subconscious mind, is going to do anything, everything it can to keep you safe. And safety is equated with familiarity. So if self destruction is familiar, if this is what you were witnessing as a child and was approved modus operandi in your environment, then this is what you will be replicating. This is going to be your safety spot.
Hmm.
So this is all about safety. Actually, it's a very primitive impulse, and it's pretty much preserved our species, because it's just this automated behavior for us to run, to stay with the group, to survive. This is what it originally, that's how it formed. But now we really don't need the same patterns as we needed them maybe 100,000 years ago. So it stands in our way. And to move this 800-pound gorilla, you need to learn you need to learn its language. And it's a very different language than the language of the conscious mind, that uses words, concepts, complexity, explanations. That's why I always simplify everything, as you mentioned just a few minutes ago, just so we can boil it down to a very simple very simple concept, or even a better, a symbol. And that's what gets in the subconscious mind. It speaks a very, very different language. So therefore, many times attempts to change, conscious attempts to change by applying willpower, don't really work, because you're not really speaking with the subconscious mind that is in the driver's seat.
Okay, so I have to ask, when we want to access the driver's seat, what is the language of the subconscious?
Oh, it's
Yeah.
fascinating. So that is a really fascinating topic. So imagine, so the language of the subconscious mind would be the language of a symbol, the language of a dream, of a myth, where you're using very powerful, sometimes even visuals, to inform your subconscious mind of a brand new safety point. Because ultimately, your subconscious, physiologically, it will remain in the driver's seat. We can't change that, but we can teach it, we can educate it, we can direct it consciously to take us exactly where we want to be.
Yeah, that's fascinating. The word symbol, you know,
Absolutely. That's why you see, if you're still tuning into TV, you will see lots of symbols being flashed. Colors are also important to speak to the subconscious mind. So the advertisers will often use red and blue colors, because these are the colors of authority, and they make your subconscious mind pay attention even more. Commercials are fantastic, are really great. Watching commercials is a great way to see, to understand the language of the subconscious mind, because it's all symbolic. Because the advertisers, of course, want us to purchase the product, but to do so, they are attempting to get to us through our subconscious mind. So
Mhm.
symbols, for instance, just yesterday, I'll give an example. Just yesterday, I was talking to a client, and he was talking about the inability to soar high. So I always pay attention to the language the person uses, because that is also, that gives you a clue about how the subconscious mind, how to communicate with their particular subconscious mind. So he's talking
Mhm.
about soaring, about flying, about being light. And I said, flying like, and he's flying like an eagle. And as he said like an eagle, everything just lit up. So for him, the symbol of being free from his self-defeating patterns is that animal. It's the bird, the eagle in particular. So it's going to be very different for many people. There are some symbols that are uniform for to all of us, but most of them will be very very specific, and they will always present themselves in the language. So when I do coaching sessions with my clients, I'll ask them to fill out a detailed questionnaire. And it's really not only about information about their background, but it's also about seeing what language are they using, what are the little clues that I can pick up on, and then formulate that unique formula for their subconscious mind, so we can communicate and find a better safety point for that 800-pound gorilla, because it will always be there, and it will always be in charge, and it will always try to take you to your safety point. So really working with self-sabotage or self-defeating patterns is to communicate to your subconscious mind where is the new safety point, because this is what it does. It will always take you to safety. So you
I
just
mean,
need to redefine that. Mhm.
right, because it has a positive intention.
Absolutely, it loves you very much. It's all about your self-preservation. It's just very confused because it learned very early on, for instance, that maybe self-defeating patterns are where you need to be for safety, to be safe in your tribe. Imagine 10,000 years ago. There's a village, a small village, and everybody has their place. Maybe there's 40 people in the village, and everybody does their thing. And then one person decides to stand out. What happens is, or and don't do these tasks. And what happens is the perception is that they make the village weaker. And
Oh.
so right? And so nobody really, and so they need to be brought back to where they need to be. They need to be brought back to their original task, their function within the group. And this is how the group dynamics works. And we are herd animals, or we are group animals. We need to associate with the group. So depending which group you believe you're plugged into, which group you belong to, which tribe you're in, you're going to adopt the average safe behavior of that tribe.
That's fascinating when we want to make these shifts to become more liberated. And then we take into context what you're saying. Feels like a perfect time for you to share a little bit more about your story, because would it be
Mm,
fair to say that you're living your best life? Like, you
I
live in
am.
Mexico. You left Canada to go to Mexico, and there's a lot more to that than just moving to Mexico, because I know that you left a corporate world and now you're a coach. So just share that
Yeah,
with us
absolutely.
as a yeah.
So yes, so this is a very very interesting story, and I don't share the whole story on my website. So you're gonna get it as I'll talk about it as openly as I can. So corporate world, that was my first preoccupation, and I worked as a consultant for very large corporations, where I was helping departments, helping with the management of change, and helping departments speak to each other to ensure the flow of information. And at some point, it felt like it's not fulfilling enough. And I really became very interested in working with individuals. And I came across a biodynamic craniosacral course.
Mhm.
And I took a practitioner's course for 2 years and began working as a craniosacral, biodynamic craniosacral practitioner. And
Oh.
I will not elaborate on that, but what's really interesting that transpired there is I had some um, wonderful healing situations where a client would literally flip from something that was incurable according to the Western medicine. Within half an hour they would not have any symptoms, and that would remain. And I had people with concussions, with all kinds of multiple sclerosis, all kinds of conditions, and in some cases those conditions simply resolve themselves. And what I have observed, the was the greater the healing, the greater the resistance, mind's resistance to it. So what was absolutely flabbergasting were people's reaction to their own healings, which is shock, of course. How can I not have that? How can I have a feel in my arm again? How could this be? It would literally turn their mind upside down and create such a strong cognitive dissonance that they would, let's say, don't see me for a month or just disappear and then came back, or never came back. Or I had clients who would literally go and re-injure themselves in the same place. So we would heal the elbow, and it will be great healing. Let's say you had tennis elbow for 5 years, and then
Mhm.
after 2 3 sessions everything is working perfectly. You go and you re-injure yourself in that particular elbow. So I just, it felt quite discouraging for me to be working and getting all these wonderful, helping people achieve all these results, because I was ultimately facilitating, and it was their person, their body that was doing the work. And I wanted to find out, what is this phenomenon that is driving this? That the higher you go, the more you bring yourself down, because they would often land even in a more difficult places than they were. So
Mhm.
someone was, let's say, with a concussion, taking antidepressants because of the pain, painkillers, bunch of medication, and then they would suddenly rise up and feel fantastic and would not take any of these medications, and then would intentionally re-injure themselves in the head and would end up being in bed, so being even lower than before. So the quality of life went even lower than originally when they came to see me. And so I felt this is a pattern. I can't do this work if this is happening. So I began researching what is driving this, which part of the mind is navigating this, and what's driving it. And I came across the self-sabotage art and a self-sabotage article, and that was really it. Then I understood that it's your subconscious mind bringing you back to safety, which is always be between two lines. You'll always have this two lines, and it will take you to stay right at the average point of between the two lines. So that was it, and it became such a fascination of mine that I decided to become a self-sabotage coach and focus only on that. So
Oh,
that is the that is the gist of my life story, and why am I doing what I'm doing. And I am very passionate about this, and it's a fascinating work, as everybody is different, everybody's story is different, and everybody requires a bit of a different language to tap into that subconscious, their own subconscious mechanisms. So every client is a different universe. And also another thing I found working with clients is how traditional psychotherapy may be a little tricky by encouraging identification with a pattern that they're trying to let go of, and creates lots of heaviness. So I began always begin with being very light, meeting them where they are, being absolutely okay with anything they're going through. There's nothing wrong with anything. and anything be changed easily.
Wow.
It
That's
doesn't really take
beautiful.
it doesn't really take much to change a belief.
So that is really what it comes down to is changing our inner belief systems.
Yes, and so those belief systems will be those blueprints, those patterns that we received as a child. And maybe to explain better on an example how it works, for instance, you let's say someone was born in a family where chaos was prevalent, so they would absorb, as children, absorb the general emotional cloud of that environment and act accordingly. So they would create chaos, and then that person grows up, leaves the family home, and goes to college, and suddenly they don't have that chaotic environment, and so it starts begins to feel unsafe because the familiar is gone, like their safety blanket is gone. So the subconscious mind will go on and try to create that. So they start smoking, or they start drinking, and they start eating not a very fast food, let's say. That creates a bit of chaos in the mind. Drinking coffee, all this creates this unhealthy perception in the mind, unhealthy body. Maybe they go partying, maybe they do anything else that is self-destructive, and then they want to quit it as it's not good for their health, and they decide to take on a draconian diet, which is again chaos, and another way of inflicting pain onto yourself. So nothing really changes. The pattern remains the same. It just gets its modality gets transferred onto something else, and then they decide to run a marathon to continue with self abuse, or they do excessive. Anything in excess is really not that good for the body. So any excessive physical exercise would create problems in the body, problems in joints or muscles or anything else. So it's just, if you don't heal the pattern, no matter what you're attempting to change, that pattern will become embedded in your next thing, in your next chapter of your life. And the same thing goes for relationships. Quitting a relationship because it's abusive, if you don't heal that need for being abused, or the susceptibility maybe for abuse, you're going to be looking for a partner who can give that to you again, because that is your familiar. That is ironically your safety point.
Hmm. So fascinating. I mean, and so, yeah, that's so fascinating. Sorry, I just had a memory of a friend like 25 years ago who was addicted to gambling, and then he had some an eating disorder. He was a man, but he had an eating disorder, and then it was something else. And I was just like, how could one person have all of these addictions? 25 years ago, this was me just thinking about this. But yeah, it's really getting down to the root cause.
It's a coping mechanism. So it's to find out what are they trying to cope with. So
Hmm.
healing an addiction doesn't have to be very long. I've had people quitting various substances after 2 3 weeks, 2 3 sessions,
Hmm.
because we managed to get to the root cause of what was it that they were coping with, and be totally okay with the addiction. There's nothing wrong with that. This is how you're helping yourself to cope. This is how you're helping yourself to survive through the pain.
Yeah. So, Margaret, if it's about inner beliefs, and if beliefs are nothing more than assumptions about our reality, how do we change the perceptions of the constructs of our reality?
hmm First of all, I'd like to say it's actually very easy. It's not complicated to change that, because a belief is just a thought that's been repeated many many times. And how long does it take to change a thought? Well, it
Hmm.
takes 1 second to change a thought. But we need to know how to do that, because as the thoughts gain a momentum, as the beliefs form and become entrenched, they just tend to induce the emotional reactions to stimuli that we see in our environment. So The way I do it, the way I find the most effective personally, is to find out, educate yourself. And by the way, I went through the process that I'm using myself. I've tried everything. This is all, everything has been pre-tested,
Yeah.
pre-tried, and I can tell, I can attest that the effects are really wonderful. They've been wonderful for me. So the first thing is to educate yourself on all these mechanics and mechanisms of your subconscious mind. How, what is actually going on? Why is it doing what it's doing? And for instance, number one would be it's only trying to take you to safety. Number two is safety is in within the average behavior of the tribe that you subconsciously you're associating with. And so just learn these different, there's, I would say, maybe 20 major points of that,
Okay.
and start really recognizing that happening within yourself, and then get to know your own patterns. And I call this emotional literacy. So we can be literate, we can really get to know our emotions very well only by really opening ourselves to them. And just like I love how you teach mindfulness, you've written some really beautiful things on that were
Thank you.
very inspiring for me
Thank
on your website, and that is really so important. And as we slow down through becoming mindful, we become safe enough to hold the space for all the emotions that are happening for us. So let's say you're upset, and you the first reaction to it will most likely be trying to suppress it, trying to cope with it, trying to maybe have a coffee or some reach for food or distract yourself. We all have these, and we all know what they are, these different mechanisms of suppressing it. So then you can consciously decide to go against that first impulse and just simply find a place to sit and become mindful. Just slow down a teeny tiny bit, just teeny tiny bit, and then mm, find in yourself enough strength to become accepting of what you're feeling. And as you become accepting of what you're feeling, I call it open the gates wide. Just allow anything and everything that come through. So
you.
let your feelings be your guests and welcome every and each of them equally. Because each of these feelings, they appear to me as just an aspect of ourselves that wants to speak, that has something to say, that maybe hasn't been heard for years. Or maybe it's a very loud part of ourselves that just needs to be out there expressing. Either way, they're all welcome. And as you let the feelings in, so let's say you're upset. So first you're going to feel, I'm angry. And anger is a secondary feeling. So as you sit with anger, there may be sadness that is underneath it and wants to come in. And then what you will see, that you will start getting these paradoxes coming in. I'm sad, but I'm silly. I have a feel of, there's humor in this. There's peace. There's rage. All that. As you see paradoxes, that means you're starting to tap into the subconscious mind.
Oh, that's fascinating. Just
That's,
that.
that's your clue. So that means you sat long enough. That's where you need to be. So just keep sitting with it. Just keep inviting these things until, so as you sit relaxed without resistance to feelings that appear unpleasant, but they only appear unpleasant because we labeled them as undesirable. That is the only reason they appear. We reject them. So as we sit in the without the resistance to that, we're creating this open passage for them to go through. And as feelings are let to come through, they just dissipate.
Mm.
They don't have anything to hold on to. They're just a story, part of it, remnants of a story that is just winding itself down. If we indulge in the story, however, we keep producing the feelings and maybe get on overload with the feelings. So it's to also let go of the story I'm going
Mhm.
to shelve the story just for this moment. I'm not going to be preoccupied with the story, and I'm going to shift my whole attention to the feelings. And as you do that, you cut off the source that is producing those feelings, and just allow yourself to be in that soup of who you are in the moment, unobstructedly, without judgment, and without uh, any anything to be anything else. So that's really the total acceptance. And as the more acceptance you have, the least resistance you create, the wider the passage, the more feelings can pass through. And it can be minutes. You can have some major upset dissipate within minutes, or it can even happen like that. Just like
Mm.
as you, the more you do it, the faster it happens. Well, the heavier the feelings, the more meaning you have developed around the story, and the least acceptance of the feelings, the longer it will take. But that's why if you practice it daily, you will develop emotional literacy. You'll know what's really happening, and you'll be so okay with anything that you're feeling, with that beautiful human experience that is available to all of us. And you will embrace equally pain and joy, because they're ultimately just a cloud in the sky passing. So they don't have to be, we don't have to be preoccupied with them too much. We just need to see them, love them, and accept them, as they say. And it may sound really flat, because lots of people these days talk about unconditional love and acceptance, but it's really about not creating friction and judgment around anything is happening within. And then the processing time is just phenomenal. And I do that a lot with my clients, where we just sit and I supply the non-judgment, and I open the gate wide. I encourage, I hold them in that total, unlimited acceptance. And as the things that they've rejected for so many years come to the surface, there's tears, there's joy, there's a huge release, simply because they've allowed that part of themselves now is being seen and loved through being accepted. Love is very simple. It's simply acceptance.
It's so funny the way it's oh, like the way we think maybe it's complicated, or that at the
Mhm.
beginning when you said it's very easy, um,
Mhm.
a lot of us think no, it's really hard. Like it's really hard. But I
That's
love that
complicate
metaphor you're
everything.
using of a passageway. Like I can actually see a passageway
Beautiful.
when you
Yes.
say that, and it's
For me,
gorgeous.
it's a beautiful big wooden gate, and I just push it wide open. I do that still. It's my practice. It's my almost daily practice. Or when I feel too much tightness, I do that. I do everything that I share with my clients. Just this opening up, and just with the sense of you're invited. Anyone is invited. And sometimes I get to connect that part of me that wants to express. Maybe there's a goofy part that comes in right after sadness. This can happen. This is goof comes. Oh, this feels really. I'm feeling really goofy, and I just connect that to that little girl, of 9 years old, when I was up to some mischief as a child. I was up to lots of mischief. So it's kind of like that person wants to be recognized. Maybe she wasn't recognized then, but now I have the opportunity to reparent that child. Because
Oh,
even us as parents, we're never perfect. We're never paying 100% of attention. And so there's, no matter how good of a parent you are, you'll always leave your child with something to resolve. So then they will have the opportunity themselves to reparent themselves. Yeah.
yes, that's true. We're always sent forward into our future with something unresolved from the past.
Absolutely, and that's a wonderful detective work, and that is really, it doesn't need to be heavy. It can be playful. Oh, I wonder who's gonna come in today. I wonder which part of me wants to express most today, and just cultivating that daily. It doesn't have to be long practice, and there's nothing really complex about that. But the power of that is in not just one-time release, but in repetition, by creating that channel so it stays open. So when you are in a situation where you mm, don't have a quiet place to go to sit and meditate, it's just gonna happen automatically. You're going to allow your reaction to be what it is, exactly what it is.
Yeah, little tiny repetitions. I agree.
Repetition is the name of the game in the working with subconscious mind, with anything that's establishes your neural pathways, and
Hmm.
that'll be a new habit, new processing way for your emotionality, and that is very powerful. And you can come out of addictions with that. You can come out of trauma if you're
Absolutely.
holding a very strong place with that. So accepting that, that makes your body feel safe, so now it can release the trauma.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's very, very inviting. This is also how we might uproot negative patterns, of course.
Hmm. Anything that's self-defeating, anything that makes you unhappy, where you watch yourself doing something that you're doing it for the thousandth time, and it seems like there's nothing that can stop you, and you don't know why. Why are you making yourself unhappy? So that's the thing. It only seems huge and maybe difficult or complex because it's not understood. Once you understand how your subconscious works, and then what is it that you're actually doing, what is it that your subconscious mind is actually trying to do in the context of your past, uh, and then you need to know how do you teach your subconscious mind different behaviors or different different safety point, as I call it. And then you simply, there's no work necessary, because the subconscious will take you automatically to where it feels that you're safe. So if you teach it, safety is in being healthy, wealthy, happy, respected, a strong, outspoken, charismatic human being. If that's your safety point, you just sit back, and it's gonna help you see all the opportunities. It's gonna do the work for you.
Wow, so we can reset our safety points.
That's what this work boils down to for me, because
Amazing.
everything else is automatic. If 95% of what you do, think, and feel is subconscious, well, then guess what? If you feel like it's safe to be happy, you're going to find happiness and joy everywhere around you, because that's safe. So your subconscious will direct your attention and will help you interpret your reality so you feel this way. It's going to drag you to happiness. It's going to drag you to wealth. Even if you're kicking and screaming, it's going to drag you to that love. It's an automatic process. Absolutely. So I'm living my best life right now. I have never been happier. I've never been more fulfilled and clear. uh, I'm also 50 years old, so that also comes with age, but I can feel how there's still growth happening for me. There's still huge expansion happening for me, and I think sky is the limit, if there is a limit even.
Oh, that's yeah, it's so beautiful and so inviting. I mean, so
Yeah.
this
And it's
conversation
so fun. It's so
when
fun, I promise you.
it's fun and light. Now, this conversation wouldn't be complete if we just touched on your work around relocation to Mexico, societal programming, because like that's a big part of who you are,
Mm. Yes.
and you're loving your life in Mexico, and just like you said, you've never been happier. So let's close with that. Um,
Of course.
mhm.
Okay. So I've been living in Mexico for close to a year and a half right now, and it's an absolutely wonderful experience, because here in Mexico there's a bit of a different not a bit, quite a bit different cultural programming. And the reason I moved from Canada was principally because of the limitations that were being created and imposed upon people in the last 2 years. And being born and raised in a communist country in Poland, it just, I felt really restricted in Canada. So looking for freedom, freedom is one of my main. It's very important to me. Uh, so I've decided to try living in Mexico to see how it is. I had other places just in case Mexico wouldn't work. But it's been so wonderful and so heartwarming to live in this culture and to be exposed to their wonderful family values that haven't been corrupted by the societal programming, where it seems like families are being targeted and are being separated, and there's lots of disruption right now, lots of focus on differences and ideologies. So coming out of that, I allowed my mind to soak into something different, and it I started expanding in this country where people are mostly very accepting and very heart oriented, and as well as have a great sense of humor, and the simplicity of life that is possible here is just absolutely stunning, and it actually took me back to my childhood and took me back to these wonderful years when I was just a bundle of creativity. So what happened is, after a few months of being here, friends and acquaintances were asking me about questions about Mexico and how to relocate, and I happened to post answer to a question in regards to moving to Mexico on one of the coaching groups, and I received lots of messages and lots of comments under my post, under my comment, and decided to, well, instead of answering all these same questions over and over, how about I just invite you all to a Zoom call? And that was picked up by Jason Christoph, who's the Self Sabotage course, whose article I first read that put me on the map as far as self sabotage coaching. His work is great, by the way. And he noticed that and said, "This is such a great idea, Margaret. How do you feel about me blasting it on my social media and inviting more people?" Of course, no problem. So I had over 800 people signing up for my presentation about how to move to Mexico, all the insider information on how you can orchestrate it, how you can do it yourself. And that was a great success. And after that, I was getting more questions, more detailed questions. So I created an online resource portal for people who to go and have a full-on instruction, pretty much on how to do it. And I also offer relocation sessions for maybe more complex situations, or when people need help organizing themselves or creating a strategy for their exit. And I would say 95% of my relocation clients have are being a little stuck in the self sabotage mode, where they're either on freeze or fight or flight. So that's every time I have a session, I check into that. How are you feeling about the change? How are you feeling about the move? And just we just neutralize that first, and then we move on to our program, our plan and our strategy for the relocation. So yes, so this is what I do also right now, and it seems I thought this was going to be just a few months work, but it just keeps going, and there's more and more people who want to move, and I'm very happy to help.
But supporting people to move to Mexico, and your move to Mexico does align with your core values, correct?
My move to Mexico aligns with my core values. Yes,
Yeah. So there's the subconscious work that we've talked about for the last little bit, but then there's societal programming that also affects us.
absolutely. So this is part of your environment you're born into, and you're kind of like you're networked into a system. You're born and you're immediately networked to what's right, what's wrong, what's safe, what's not safe, and the unsafe part will be what's not acceptable in your culture, and then your family will take on the cultural values as well. Sorry, this is
Mm.
Mexico, so we have these flying creatures.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, so
We-
culture, your family of origin, and what you're seeing on your screens, and what you're telling yourself, and the environment you're in. All this contains messages to your subconscious mind about what is safe and what's unsafe. So to switch that safety point, you need to change your environment pretty much. So you place clues in your home, in your car, in your office. It's these symbols that we need to find what they are. And you also need to work with your self talk, because we end up self programming ourselves to just repeating the old programming that is just getting more and more entrenched as the truth, and what we see on the screen, because your mind doesn't know the difference. You're watching a movie and someone gets hurt, and you have a reaction of as if you were hurt. So being very mindful to what you're feeding your mind, what you're feeding your eyes, what you're hearing, because the more violence you hear, and you it's in your perception, whether on screens or in your environment, the more you're gonna be going into fight or flight, and the stronger your subconscious patterns are gonna get. Because if you're under attack, if you're unsafe, the subconscious mind will try to bring you to that safety point. And if it's low point for you, if it's an addiction, if it's chaos, self-abuse, this is where you're going to end up more. You're going to go deeper into that. So taking care of come out of fight or flight, no matter what. Don't expose yourself to violent images. Just maintain the zen. And open the gate wide. Also, whatever came in,
Gosh,
whatever came in can come out. That's not a problem.
I love that. Let's end on that beautiful note of opening the gate wide. Really amazing. You're incredible. If someone wanted to touch base with you and collaborate with you, find you about Mexico or any of your transformative coaching programs, what's the best way to reach you, Margaret?
The best will be my email at contact@margaretkeays.com.
Fantastic. All right. Well, wishing everyone expansion, consciousness expansion, and peace and blessings to everyone. And Margaret, thank you. Until next time, I'm Barbara Lapointe from the Healing Broken Families podcast.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
An honor. Thank you for being here, for supporting the Healing Broken Families podcast and being part of this amazing healing community. I'm Barbara Lapointe, a solution-focused life coach, divorce coach, and conflict resolution specialist. But I am so passionate about your awakening. I am passionate and so excited to welcome you to your own divorce awakening, to your own spiritual and soul awakening, because all is well. You know what? We are empowered to heal. We are empowered to heal. And your divorce, difficult, high conflict relationship, parental alienation, all of these things you will come to see them as a gift. You will come to see everything as a beautiful gift. So embrace the conflict, embrace the struggle, embrace the wound. I invite you now to please go to my website, barbaralapointe.com. There are many free resources there for you, but a great place to start is download my ebook, Erased by a Narcissist, and then book yourself a free complimentary consult or connection discovery call. I will serve and coach you powerfully for an hour. Also, I invite you now to subscribe to my YouTube channel, make comments on these videos. I ask all of my expert guests to make themselves available to you and also comment your questions, your pain, your problems, and your thoughts, your opinions, your concerns. I truly, truly believe that we heal in community, and I welcome you to my community. So I'm sending you a lot of love and blessings. I've come to know that when you go through divorce, you truly need to be resourceful, strong, and supported. So it's an honor to walk this journey with you. Welcome to your awakening, and welcome to your deepest